I'm joined on the couch this afternoon, or this morning, depending on where you are, by my colleague Alex. This is what we would call the North American edition, and we know that because we've got two people joining us from North America. Rob, our often usual teammate, and Natasha Walstra, who we'll be introducing in just a moment. So first of all, exciting to be on the sofa with you. My first time doubling up with you, Alex.
Yeah, I saw you this morning. You broke your sofa duck this morning.
I did with Andy. Yeah,
I
was
did.
Lovely.
I did mine last week, and great to be here again today.
Yeah, fantastic. So we're hoping for some more exciting conversations today. So if we can bring on Rob and Natasha.
Welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. Rob, introduce yourself quickly for those joining again from the UK that didn't have you this morning.
Hi all, I'm Rob Durant. I'm the founder of Flywheel Results, and I work with startups to help them scale.
Fantastic. And now to Natasha. So this is Natasha Walstra. She's I'll let her introduce herself, but we're incredibly privileged that she is going to launch her new business now on SalesTV, which is NearBound Strategies. So Natasha, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and this new venture of yours.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. So this is my official launch of NearBound Strategies, but I am also currently advisor at Heritage Brands, where I've sort of been building this concept without even realizing it, because I've been working very closely with CEOs, entrepreneurs, sales professionals to help drive business growth or affect social impact, and do so by becoming a visible leader. And the best way to do that is to exist digitally and have your sort of personal brand, your digital hub of who you are and what you represent. And that's a big part of what I do and what I will be doing more of with NearBound Strategies.
What is NearBound?
Yeah, so that's great. So when we discussed this and you said NearBound, and Alex said this as well, it's one of those things where you think to yourself, yeah, I'm familiar with that name, and you've no idea why, and you've no idea quite why and what it's about. So for an idiot like me, describe what do you mean when you use the term NearBound?
Of course, yeah. So actually, it's something I heard probably about 6 months ago, and there was something about it that, again, that feeling of familiarity, I like kind of clung on to it for whatever reason, and I figured it out months later as to why. But if you think about inbound being marketing and outbound being sales, the future of sales and marketing is nearbound, which is your network, referrals, word of mouth, it's your relationships. And so it's stuff we've all been doing. You guys know extremely well on the social selling side of things. It's just another term that, again, sounds a little bit more familiar maybe, but it's a way to really leverage your network and your relationships to drive business growth.
Yeah, I mean that makes perfect sense. I mean, one of the things that we often see is that your business and the introductions and the value and the equity that you have comes from those people closest to you, and being able to kind of view that in a strategic way and develop that is an incredibly powerful thing. But you said about digital kind of presence and footprint being a really important thing. Now, we met obviously when we spoke about you doing some publishing for me and developing me as a thought leader in this space. So I mean, you've got a lot of experience of doing that. So how important is that in the modern world, you know, being perceived as somebody that knows what they're talking about, and what are the different pillars that people need to get in place to maximize the benefit of that?
Yeah, so it is funny, speaking originally back around book publishing, and while I was in that world, I totally became obsessed almost with the thought of becoming a published author to drive thought leadership and help with your business goals. But something that I realized while I was there, that it doesn't really matter how great your book is if you don't have a digital presence or are communicating and engaging with your audience. No one will ever know about the book. It's not like if you build it, they will come. You have to be doing things in real time and look at a holistic approach to building and platforming your thought leadership. And so that was actually part of why I left the publishing world, because I felt almost this like moral issue of, I'm trying to sell you something that really it can have such a huge effect. But if you don't exist in the digital world, you're a total ghost. No one's going to ever hear about it. And actually quite the opposite. You're going to lose credibility, because, who doesn't have some sort of social presence on the internet, right?
Yeah.
I kind of think, that's great for an entrepreneur or solopreneur. You've got this kind of freedom to develop your personal brand, your professional brand, and without real limitation, bring as many of your extended network closer to the center of your network. But what about those businesses or those teams that, certainly if I think about senior sales leadership, they're creating a model, a territory, and they're carving that territory up into lots of little bits. And they're putting salespeople in those territories. It's so difficult for that individual then to lean on perhaps their NearBound strategy, to lean on their, the closest people in their network, because they're given a territory that perhaps they didn't choose or wouldn't have chosen themselves. Do you have any advice or tips for sales leaders that are thinking about territory creation in that sense? Is that an area that you kind of get involved in?
Yeah, and I mean, the way that I would look at that is, having established your personal brand and your expertise in the industry you're in, number one, is going to be huge, so that when you do go to a new territory, let's say, those in your network that maybe aren't in that physical location could still recommend you or refer you. And especially if you have that foundation where you look credible, and people are going to be more willing and wanting to refer their network to you as well. So it's really, and I want to be clear too, it's not just about posting on LinkedIn or social channels. It's what happens behind the scenes as well. Those actual relationships that you're building, not just, another follower, another like. It's really about those genuine connections that then would be more inclined to actually refer them to their, colleague across the country, whatever that is.
Yeah. Well, and this is where I think there's an opportunity for, sales leaders to work or have their teams work closer together to leverage their relationships from across the region, across the country, in that way, which I don't think happens that much.
No, and I even find it confusing too, because so many of the decision makers are in the C-suite, and those are the ones that really do live on LinkedIn as well. And so I know so many sales professionals who aren't active whatsoever on LinkedIn, or have it established, and yes, they're using it for prospecting on Sales Navigator, let's say, but nothing actual about personal branding or sharing, showcasing their expertise. So I find it weird there's this disconnect between the sales professionals not posting and connecting with the C-suite, who are the decision makers and the ones probably, roadblocking their sales cycle.
Yeah. Now, I think it's really interesting that your raison d'etre over the last year or two has been kind of creating rock stars. Now, at the moment, you're looking at and working with female founders, aren't you? And kind of elevating them and giving them the support that they need to be the thought leaders that they deserve to be. And I think that is great, because you're leading by example. I mean, I noticed on your LinkedIn profile the other day that you are a LinkedIn top voice for this. So clearly, I mean, you are walking the walk as well as talking the talk. So are you finding that when you're working with female founders, they struggle in a way that men don't, because they lack the confidence, because of the matriarchy and things, glass ceilings and all of this? Or does that make them more robust and able to embrace this and go, yeah, I can do this?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and that's an area I'm so excited to be working more with female founders, because I've been through it myself too, and I still, to be honest, I'm struggling with a lot of this and imposter syndrome. It's quite clear, but it's one of those things that I've been realizing is that we've been told not to show off, take care of other people first, make sure um, we're putting others first a lot of the time. And so a lot of what I'm hearing and what I'm working with my clients on, it's not just around the training and accountability side of things, but it is that mindset and the imposter syndrome, those fears. It's not about me, it's about the product. I don't want to come off like I'm showing off. And so those are the things that I'm just helping them work through it, because it's not showing off, it's your experience and your expertise you're proud of, and you can share it with your audience and your future clients, and it just helps accelerate your business goals so much more. And so once we kind of talk through it, a lot of my conversations tend to almost feel like therapy in some ways, because I'm going to help push through that and understand what is that roadblock specifically. And most likely I probably felt it too. And I didn't intentionally build my personal brand knowingly. I started it out of fear, actually, because I landed a job in tech sales as an SDR. It was one of those 100 dials a day, cold calling, absolutely soul crushing. And I was having nightmares every day. So but I'm also really competitive, so I had to find a way to hit my numbers, and that's actually how I discovered LinkedIn. So it wasn't like I was going out there to build my personal brand. I was trying to hit my numbers. It was kind of almost out of desperation, but it felt like a more authentic, natural way of doing it.
So I'm a salesperson, or I'm a founder, or I'm just about to found my business, and I buy this whole that I need to be seen as the go-to person. I absolutely buy that, particularly as a founder. I have to be seen, but I'm starting from ground zero. And some of the comments that we've heard previously has been, well, it's a bit late. It's not worth me joining Twitter now, for example. It's not worth me joining Twitter because everyone's, already got like thousands of followers, and I'll never be able to catch up. So I'm starting from a ground zero. What are the steps I need to go through as a founder in of a business to put myself as that figurehead in the public domain, so people look at me and they go, well, okay, here's somebody that I could do business with, or here's someone that knows what they're talking about? What are those different pillars that one needs to develop, do you think?
There's sort of I don't want to say obvious, but the things that you can pretty much Google, and say, how do I optimize my profile, right? And so you get it set up to look a certain way. But of course, LinkedIn used to be more around job searching, career hunting, right? And now it's really a way to, it's almost like it's your dating profile, right? And it's a way to build trust before you're even interacting with your audience or clients, prospects, etc. And so if you can go into like your profile creation thinking about that one person that you want to talk to, and find a way to make it to connect with them and make them want to continue a conversation or start a conversation with you, that's what I would have in mind as you're setting that foundation and making sure your picture is right, your headlines there, the featured section. Like those are things, again, it's kind of LinkedIn 101, but really thinking and putting yourself in the shoes of those you're talking to, and actually talk to them.
Yeah. There's been some great comments so far. Thank you, Kristen, Spencer, and you've been very active. There is a question from Bob Bretton, who's been on the show before. But before I go to Bob's point, what you're saying reminds me of social selling. So how do you, like, everything you're saying is pretty much, well, isn't that okay? How is it different? You must get that when you're talking to clients. Isn't what you're talking about social selling? We've tried that.
So social selling is part of NearBound, I would
Okay.
say. Like the whole NearBound strategy includes like all of the networking, the social selling, like that is part of it, but you can't really do social selling if you don't exist on your digital platforms, right?
Yeah.
And so what my focus is right now is really on making sure that you appear as credible as you actually are.
Okay.
Because that's the part that kind of gets forgotten at times, right? Like you can, and a lot of people are doing NearBound IRL, right? In real life events, networking, conferences. We're very much used to that, but now it's time to translate that to the digital realm because we are so much more digitally savvy because of COVID in the last few years, right? I mean, look at us right now. We're in two countries, I guess, right?
Yeah.
I'm actually keynote speaking at a LinkedIn local in New Zealand tonight, or at 2:30 this morning. So, I mean, it's quite wild, but that's part of it, right? That's all NearBounding.
Yeah, and it's a great segue into Bob Britton's point, which we've kind of touched on earlier. Bob says, why is geography still a limiting factor? There's no reason to sell territorially in the digital world. In fact, it limits both the company and the seller's productivity. Rob, have you got any thoughts on that? Let's bring Rob into the conversation.
Any thoughts on why we sell by territory?
Yeah, so Bob's saying, why is geography still a limiting factor? Go ahead.
Because that's the way we've always done it. And nobody's given us permission to do anything else.
Yeah.
If you are waiting for permission, if you are waiting for somebody to approve, keep waiting. We're at the age now where it's time to do. It's time to take action and then ask for, seek forgiveness rather than asking for permission. The digital age is happening so quickly. Be smart, be respectful, be conscientious of how you're putting yourself out there and how you're representing your brand, but just do these things.
Yeah.
Try it and fail. Failing is okay.
And we've got another question here from Jeff Matlow. What are good/bad methods to transition from social credibility to social selling? You want to have a go with that, Natasha?
Yeah.
That's a really good question. I think when I'm not really sure there is that transition, because when you're being credible, you don't actually really sell. You're solving people's problems, right? And then people are going to want to work with you. They may not even realize that you sold or pitched them, right? You're actually just solving their problem. And so I don't think they're really, it's almost like it does, that line doesn't exist. Yeah, Rob?
Yeah. I mean, I think that the whole word or the expression social selling is a bit distasteful, because actually, if you're doing it right, you're not selling. You're laying something out and people are buying from you. But I thought it was really interesting that you said, Natasha, about that's like LinkedIn 101, and well, that obviously people go to the digital footprint and look at you and check you out on these social platforms before they make a decision and they decide they want to have a conversation with you. And one of the things that keeps being repeated to me is that this is blindingly obvious. Everybody knows this, and yet so few people are able to connect their own behavior with the behavior of the people that they think are going to be their clients. So clearly, before I buy from you, I'm going to go and check you out on LinkedIn. I'm going to see the sort of things you publish. I'm going to see what people say about you. I'm going to see the comments that you leave and decide whether or not I want to work with you. But when I'm selling, I just send them an email because, I've told them my product's the best product, and clearly they're going to buy. And actually, there is this massive disconnect, isn't there, between how people themselves behave and how they expect others to behave. So when you're working with founders and helping them to become thought leaders, is this something that you see where they're failing to connect the dots that seem so obvious to you because you're living the dream, but for them it's just like, oh yeah, I'd not thought of that.
Yeah, well, that's actually why the program I've created isn't just around the 101 basics or even the training and best practices. It's around accountability. I have weekly huddles with my clients to make sure they're actually doing what we say they're going to do.
Yeah, and so when we are working with organizations, typically the go-to excuse, and there are always excuses, the go-to excuse is, I was really busy, I didn't have time. And so what are you seeing as some of the the levers that you need to pull to make sure that people do these things. Because, you know, knowing it is one thing, doing it is something entirely different, and doing it repeatedly, week after week, month after month, is a different thing again.
I drive it back to how it's going to help them make more money. If they spend, and it's an ask of mine, I do say, you know, I'm not asking you to spend hours and hours on LinkedIn by any means, but if you commit to 30 minutes a day, and again, this isn't just about posting, it's about connections, it's about DMs, it's about comments, they're going to start seeing results very quickly. And so, you know, I use in real time, I'm a case study for this. The last, I don't know how many deals I've closed came from some sort of activity I did on LinkedIn. I can point to each of the activities too. And again, it wasn't always a post. It was a comment on Twitter I made that led to a coffee that led to me working now with a state senator, right? Like things like that that are just so enticing. I can tell these stories and point to them and say, let's do it for you now. And it'll make money for you or help you get to your goals, whatever that is. And so driving it back to ROI is typically how I have to look at this. and then they're more inclined.
So we've got another question here from well, it's more a statement. I'd love to get your view on, Natasha. Bob says the AIDA model still applies when building your digital brand. Grab their attention, it's the A, get them interested, have them make a decision, and get them to take action. I fully agree, but what are your thoughts on that comment from Bob?
So I think a lot of times what I'm seeing, and I'm not sure if I totally have this right, but you know, people expect things to just happen once they see these comments or posts, or you know, once you build your personal brand and you start to do these type of networking, that people are just still going to just come to you. It doesn't work that way. There still has to be conversation. There still has to be you know, some back and forth and follow up and all the standard things. But I think, you know, there is a balance there, I'd say.
Yeah. I think, you know, for me, the balance is the difference between that traditional selling. So I want to force them to take the next step. I want to get them to take the next step versus actually, I'm going to demonstrate that I am a trusted advisor. I'm genuine and authentic, and I'm going to encourage my target audience to walk towards me without them feeling like they're forced to go anywhere. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that is, I think, interesting about the modern sales environment is that lots of people still hope that there is a secret key to unlock huge volumes of inbound and people knocking on the door to buy stuff. And you know, organizations and individuals are desperate to produce something that goes viral, because, you know, it'll be seen by 1 million people and then the phone will start ringing. Or I'm going to post a really insightful piece of content. Often it's not consumed, but that side, you know, an insightful piece of content, and then the phone will ring. And actually, one of the challenges that I often see is that people's expectations needs to be remapped. You know, there was a client that we worked with, and they posted a piece of content, and it got seen by 6.5 million people, and got 39,000 likes, and didn't generate a single piece of inbound.
Wow.
And because the truth of the matter is that if you're selling something complex, people are not going to do your sales job for you. And all this can do, you know, whether or not that's networking in the virtual space using LinkedIn and tools like that, or whether that's networking in real life at networking events, it's all about conversations, particularly in the B2B space. It's all about having conversations. So I guess the question to you, Natasha, is how have you found getting this message embedded with people? Because all of us hope that there's going to be a magic on switch. You know, I'm going to press the easy button and then everything will be all right. And actually, these days, that's delusional behavior, isn't it?
The silver bullet.
Yeah.
Silver bullet, indeed.
So I kind of go back to that idea of talking to that one person. And a lot of times that one person probably isn't on LinkedIn and consuming it as much as we are, who are very active and productive on LinkedIn, let's say. I think when you're talking to that one person and you're paying attention to the conversations you're having outside of a platform, right, in the DMs or virtual coffees and such, I think that's more important than looking at the likes and the impressions, because at the end of the day, it may not actually make you any money. But if you're talking to that one person and solving their problem, when you go and message them and then they check your profile, right? They're not going to automatically go to it just because of what you're sharing. When they see on your profile in your featured section that you're solving their problem, then they're going to be more inclined to actually have that conversation, and maybe this can lead to something. But if you're only focusing on the likes and the impressions and what the other top creators are doing, it's not going to help with your business goals. You all have something different, right? And so I think that's the part that's most important, is to let go of those metrics and talk to that one person.
Yeah, vanity metrics or lazy metrics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the topic of metrics, and I want to bring Rob in for this one. We've got another question from the audience here. This time, or again from Jeff Matlow. Thank you, Jeff. The question is, Rob, what do you think are the most important metrics in establishing social credibility? He goes on to sort of say, followers, top voice badge, comments on post. But, those aside, what do you think are the metrics?
Sales.
I love the way you start with that one word answer.
Yeah.
And if it's not leading to commercial intent, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the question that was earlier. When do you transition from NearBound to social selling? Never. It's not about selling. I tell my students all the time, success in life is not about what you know. Success in life is also not about who you know. Success in life is determined by who knows what you know. NearBound is your opportunity to get to know more and more people and have them know you for what you know. There is no, hey, now that we've had a coffee, I'm going to send you a pitch a week from now or an email ad a week from now. Never. What it is now that we've had a coffee and you know what I represent and you know what I need and I know what you represent and I know what you need, I am happy facilitating introductions to people that can help you if you would do likewise for me. And it's about being that person's go-to person in their Rolodex. Everyone needs a good doctor, a good lawyer, and a reliable mechanic in their Rolodex. You want to be the person of interest in their Rolodex for what you want to be known for. That's it.
Yeah.
And how do you measure that success? By more and more phone calls that lead to commercial intent. It's the referrals, it's the conversations, it's all of that. It's sales.
Yeah, great point. That never gets old, that saying. That is going to be known as the professor's saying.
As the professor always says, yes.
Natasha, would you add anything? We've just over a minute to go.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And that's why it's so important to take things off of the platform and have these genuine, real connections, right? With that being said, though, a lot of times people judge a book by a cover, right? It is the truth, right? And so going onto someone's page and it at least looks like something you'd want to refer or want to have that conversation, it is important to portray your expertise that way. And so that's why I focus so much on yes, your LinkedIn profile does matter. People do read it. You do too when you look at other people. So let's look at yours and make it sound like yours is something that you're proud of, that does represent you. And that's not something that was written by ChatGPT or, or that's marketing copy and pasted jargon. Make it yours and build that trust before you have that conversation. So it all goes much faster and you make more money.
And it's an ongoing thing.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all very much indeed. Thank you everyone that's tuned in. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Alex, of course. And most of all, thank you, Natasha. We'll see you all again next episode.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.